So, what went from a simple unboxing video to a holy shit, I gotta take this whole thing apart video. This is the Amico Power 50, I think it is. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's a Power 50. I'm sorry. It's the Amico Cut 50 from Amazon. I paid 300 bucks for it, I think, or 279 or so. I have to look exactly what it was. It was about $300. And I got what I paid for. I haven't cut with it yet. I've got shit I got to do. So that's that. Today was a learning experience in a couple ways. So a little bit. You see me take it out of the box, and then I fiddle with it a little bit. And I plugged my lavalier microphone into its charger, and what ended up happening was the wireless started transmitting or started recording itself charging. So I was getting a 60 hertz hum throughout the entire video that I shot, which is a total fucking bummer. But so basically, it came with a couple of these two flat boxes. This is like a shitty unboxing video, but I want to finish it because it's kind of important. So what happened was, yeah, my audio got screwed up. So most of this is going to be from my. The rest of this, for the most part, is going to be on my GoPro, which I didn't screw up the audio on. Thank God I had two audio sources. I should have had three. So what was in the box is this torch head, some spare consumables, these are the spare consumables here, and the ground cable, which you need a ground to make this thing work right. And basically, this is where the torch handle plugs in. This is where the control for the torch handle plugs in. This is the ground, where the ground plugs in. And this is where you adjust your air output to the nozzle. Okay. The next little bit is I had a problem with this air fitting here. So I'll show how to do that, and it'll just have like a music interlude over top of it. And basically what I'm showing in the video is how I took apart the machine to gain access to repair this. It's not a big deal, but it was kind of, I couldn't believe it went that way. It was stupidity on my part. I should have known better. Basic electronics, basic physics says that was going to happen with the wireless. Oh well. I'm actually using my shotgun mic right now too. The other bummer is the silly lavalier microphone. Now I remember why I wasn't using the lavalier microphone through this camera, because the lavalier microphone only records in mono. This camera only records in stereo. At least I haven't figured out how to turn it into mono recording. So that was that. So sorry for that part of the video. So I bought a plasma cutter. This is just going to be an unboxing video for right now. I don't really have the time to set the whole thing up, so I'm just going to do a quick setup and make sure it works, and then we'll do a little bit more extensive test later in the project, or when I get into more of a project of what's going on here. So I bought this off Amazon. It was I think it was like 300 bucks. I've wanted a plasma cutter now for a long time. Actually, the pig cooker project actually is kind of why I bought this. I've needed one for a while. I need something that cuts heavier material a little bit cleaner than a blowtorch and a little bit faster than a saw, which I usually just use a saw. So why did I buy this one?
I bought it because it was 300 bucks and it's red. These are Chinese. They all come from basically the same type of factory. Like I said, I bought it because it's red, because it matches my Lincoln TIG welder and my Lincoln MIG welder. Lincoln does make a plasma cutter, but it's really expensive. It's like $1,500. I'm not running a production shop. I highly doubt I will ever get a CNC table, so I am not overly worried about it. So let's see what's in the box here. I don't plan on cutting 5/8 plate in a single pass. A little bit of a screw up on my part was, and I tracked this thing because I wanted to know when it was going to show up, because I didn't want it sitting outside. Well, ironically, it came yesterday while I was sleeping. My wife didn't know what it was, and it got rained on. So we'll see what happens, or what happened, in a minute here. The box got wet. I'm not too worried about it. Plasma cutter, the electronics should be fine. I know guys that have had their plasma cutters underwater. They just power washed them and unplugged them, power washed them, and they work just fine afterwards. Same with their welders. A buddy of mine had a shop in a low-lying area. So let's see what we have in here. This is kind of why I bought this one, because it has a power adapter. This machine is a 220 volt machine, but it's got a 110 adapter instructions, which got wet. Power cord. Box of goodies. We'll see what that is in a minute. Another box of goodies. We'll see what that is in a minute. And the machine itself. Alright, so we got cardboard on either side. Thankfully it came wrapped in plastic. There she is. Take a quick spin around here and see what else is cooking. Nice backlit. It's the front gauge, or the front of it. So here it is. It came wrapped in plastic, which is great. My bench here is still covered in shit from my Denise project. I really need to clean my garage. Now there's a power cord. It's just 220 volts, probably a 50 amp. I have a 50 amp dedicated outlet for my welders, so we're good that way. A now useless silica gel packet. Okay, so let's happen to have a towel sitting here. Wipe the water off of this thing. That's just silly. So here's the controls on the front. I'm going to say that that's the got this little door in it. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but there shows a picture of a little air regulator in there, and I want to take a look at that thing. It's just got a couple Phillips screws in it. Breaking the seals on these are a big no-no, even though, like I said, the warranty on this type of stuff is worthless. I'm curious to see what's inside of here. Alright, that's pretty much what I thought it was going to be, and that's probably where it's going to leak air. And that's a drain. There's a little sintered, it's sintered metal. It just looks like fiberglass air filter in there. I'm gonna have to read the directions. I have the most peculiar feeling that this thing can't take full shop air. As a matter of fact, I would bet good money that if I put 120 pounds of air in this thing, it's going to explode instantly. So I may end up having to put a diaphragm regulator on this before I even plug it in. The other thing I might do, I have to look through my paint gun shit, is a diaphragm regulator and a pre-air dryer. I have pretty wet air here, so there's always that problem around this shop. Just like a spray gun, basically, except it uses electricity to spray shit. So, like I said, this is for a separate ground. This is the drain. This is the air inlet, which I'm going to have to modify to get it to work properly, of course. That's why, you know, that's just standard. They're all like that. Spin it around once again. All right, so like I said, this is that's the ground plug. That's the inlet for the hose, for the torch lead. Okay, that's a furled fitting. I'm probably not going to put plate dope on that because that kind of circumvents the whole electrical thing. And then here's the remote switch. So this is relatively self-explanatory for anybody who's ever used any of this type of equipment. Basically, this is where your torch lead goes in. It's standard right-hand threads. I'll get a wrench out for that in a second. This is the remote lead. It's just a 2-prong lead. It's basically just an on-off switch. It's not like a plasma cutter, which has, or I'm sorry, not like a TIG torch that has 4 leads. It's a little troubling. Yeah. Alright, well, I guess that's the way that's going to live. So there's a series of screws in it here. This is the piece that fell down inside and I can't get to it any other way. So I got to take these screws out, and then there's some in the bottom here. And then see if we can get into this thing, or at least get the cover open.
Wow, this is the guts of the machine here. Looks like there's zip ties holding stuff together. I'm actually kind of glad this happened. So there's the culprit, right? Oh, yeah, so there's the culprit. You know, sadly, I didn't even get this thing to, I didn't even plug this thing in and it's already fucking me. So, there's that. Taking into consideration. That bulkhead fitting is loose. I was a little concerned about some of these other fittings being loose. Now, taking that cover off was actually relatively simple, so I'm not too worried about that. The electronics in this thing are shockingly large. It's not really much more than a rectifier and a transformer and a couple capacitors. Yeah, they look like they'd fry you like a fucking chicken or blow your hand off if you got too close to them. This machine is unplugged, by the way. Yeah, these capacitors in here, yeah, they look dangerous as hell. It's also probably what's going to blow up first. So, there's the culprit, and there's the fitting. Let's try to get this apart. Metric. I should get my thread pitch gauge out and see what the thread pitch is on these. Now, actually, what I am going to do here, because I have this apart already, I think I'm going to try to put this together on the bench and then put it in and then tighten it that way. Then I'm going to plug air into it and see what leaks. Because I got a feeling, I have the most peculiar feeling that these little fittings here are going to leak. This is going to be the bugaboo. These are going to be the problem with this machine forever. Alright, so my grand plan's not going to work. I wanted to assemble all this stuff and then stick it in and run it. Yeah, it's not going to work because this won't allow me to do that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble it temporarily with the system open, taking my life into my hands. These fittings are metric also, which is a pain in the ass. You can see here what happened was when I unscrewed the fitting, this backed off and this fell down inside the machine. Well, that's no fucking good. Go get a wrench and get the right size wrench on this and tighten that up like it owes me money. I guess in a way this isn't a bad thing. It's not the greatest thing. This is a 12 millimeter. It's already got a little pipe dope on it. I'm going to use a little more. Knead this shit up. This is a great way to introduce contaminants into the system too, so you got to be real careful with this shit. It looks to me like they use liquid Teflon. Try not to get it at this end here. Alright, so this is a 12 millimeter, this is a 14, some bitch, so 15. Oh, that's not good. Alright, I felt it. The cheap brass fitting may have just shit the bed on me. We'll find out.
So here's where I'm at. I originally was just going to take a valve and then screw it into here, but the problem is the air inlet valve is too close to this bulkhead connection for the power, so I couldn't spin this on. So I can just show real quick here. Ooh, I can barely do it this way. So what I ended up doing was I went through my hoard, and I just happened to have this. This is 1/4 inch pipe, and it's brass. If you don't use brass, you're an ass. Any steel in this is going to cause rusting issues, and then that's going to get into this filter over here and fuck you. These machines are very reliant on clean, dry air. So it just so happens that I have a diaphragm valve here and this fitting. Now, what I'm going to end up having to take all this crap back apart, so I'm not going to tighten it up with a wrench right this second. And I'm not actually too keen on this setup here. This is just asking to get snapped off at one point or another. It's just too long. So what I'm probably going to end up doing here is I'm going to get some fittings, and I'm going to change the way this thing is set up. What I'll probably end up doing is putting a right angle on here and then a right angle on this. But for the time being, for testing purposes, because like I said, I have a most peculiar feeling when I plug shop air into this thing, it's going to explode. Also, I should note that this is a diaphragm style regulator, which means it will stay at whatever pressure I set it at all times. This is a cheater valve. Now, the cheater valve does not do that. A cheater valve always allows air flow through it at whatever the shop pressure is, and then once you release the pressure on it, it regulates itself. With this particular machine, if I do that, what's going to happen is it's going to blast off every time, and that's going to shorten the life of the everything. The other thing is, this is brand new. This is a desiccant dryer that I use for my spray guns and painting. And now I'm going to use it on these. And my air here, I do have 2 air water separators in the system, but what I definitely do have is water that condensates or condenses in the air hoses that are laying on the floor. So we're going to plug some air into this thing without putting electricity to it, and we're going to see if it blows up. So this is what I was able to come up with to fix the air inlet problem and to address the clean air issue. So basically what I have going on here is I installed this 2-inch or 1.5 inch pipe nipple, and this is a diaphragm regulator, so when I plug it in, the machine won't be getting shop air. It'll be getting a regulated air at about whatever I set it at, whatever I need it for. And this is a desiccant air dryer that I use for painting. These are available at Napa. They're available online at Amazon, whatever. They're like 15 bucks for 2 of them. And then this is the fitting that actually works with my air hoses, which is a Milton 777, or a Milton A style. So let's plug it in and see if anything blows up. Now, I will say that I am fully expecting a leak here, but not, I'm fully expecting a leak here somewhere. And what I'm going to have to do is, and I truly and honestly do not recommend this, is I'm going to plug this thing in without the cover on it, which is really dangerous, and I don't suggest anybody does it. Okay. So, over the sound of the fans, I hear some leaking, which is coming out of this fitting right here. But these fittings, so the air comes in here from the shop through the desiccant, through the diaphragm filter, which I have set for 50 pounds, which should be more than enough to operate this machine, into the nipple, into the bulkhead fitting here, which is leaking. It's actually leaking right here, and I can fix that with some pipe dope. Into these press-on fittings, into this clear hose, into the clear hose. This machine is not plugged in, that's why I'm sticking my fingers in here. Goes into there. The hose runs down here, runs underneath the switch, into this connection here, which goes into the air-water separator that's in the machine itself, runs out of here to the pressure regulator for the machine. Out of the pressure regulator into, okay, so it comes out of the, so it runs from here into the regulator, which is a diaphragm style regulator, out of the regulator into the gauge, okay, yeah, into the gauge, out of the regulator again, into this solenoid, and then to the into the gun. So that's how that works. Ooh. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the air again. I'm going to flip it around real quick. And I'm going to hook up the fittings on the front again. It's on the floor. I have a feeling that this one's probably going to leak too. But it is what it is. Now this is just going to be a quickie test run here. Oh, I get this apart. Yeah. Well, that's loose too. Man, everything on this is like hand tight. That's piss poor. This is a standard electrical bulkhead connection here. And the fucker's soldered. I still haven't figured out how to get this front cover off. Ah, front cover's held on from the back side here. Alright, well, no big deal. So I just tighten that up by hand a little bit more. I can't get a wrench in there, so fuck it. Let's plug this monstrosity in and see if we can electrocute ourselves. Yeah, I guess I should hook the ground up to something. Fuck it. I'm going to take a second to mention this. I'm just going to show it real quick, just the end of it. I have a dedicated 220 volt welding extension cord, or welder extension cord. This thing's as big around as a garden hose, which I'm going to use to plug into here. I'm going to make sure it's turned off first. Okay, the machine's off. Plug it in. All right, so now it's plugged in. It's plugged into the wall. Let's turn it on and see what happens. I'm going to hold this just in case it purges. Oh, plug the air in. Let's get a wider shot here. All right. All right. All right, so now this machine is plugged in right now, so it's hot, it's dangerous to be operating this without the cover on it. That's why I widened the shot a little bit, so if I get electrocuted, it can be on camera for the amusement of my friends. All right, I'm gonna plug the air in. Yeah, that's a really piss poor connection there. All right, so that's that. Let's turn the power on. Okay, power is on. Set for 26 amps, 30, 47, 53, 21, 16, whatever. You can see the little dial on the front there. Let's just see what happens. All right. We're not going to do any cutting right this second. So I'm going to shut it off. And that was proof of concept to make sure that it worked, and I don't have any leaks. Huh. The power is off. Oh, there it goes. So that's very interesting. Remember how I said this thing has giant capacitors in it? What that was is the capacitors running down. It's very interesting. Let me turn it back on and do that again. All right, so the power's on. I heard little relays clicking. I'm gonna run some juice through it. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off. Now the power's off, the switch is off, but it's still holding juice. All right, now that drained the capacitors down. That's really interesting. That's very, very, very interesting. And on that note, I ain't sticking my fingers back in this thing while it's plugged in, and I'm probably going to let it sit for about 10 minutes before I fuck with it anymore. That's a great way to get electrocuted. And that's why you don't fiddle with shit with the cover off. That's actually a perfect example of why you don't fuck with shit with the cover off. All right, so let's take this apart. I'm gonna put some dope on this one. We'll put some dope on it. And I'll have to go get my little pipe wrench. This is going to be the way this is from now on, I think. That's an executive decision I'm making. And I thread that on there thusly. And then go get a pipe wrench. That's asking for, this is asking to get snapped off. That's for damn sure. Rid of that. Nah. Okay. It's been a couple minutes now, so I guess we can fiddle with it. I should point this out. This ground lug that goes to nowhere, that's amazing. That's China at its finest. China. That's China. China at its finer. China at its finest. All right, so let's put the cover back on. This is where you get zapped, by the way, doing that. You know, on days like this, I wonder if I should have maybe bought the $1,500 one. Nah, who am I kidding? If I was running a shop again where this thing was going to be getting used and abused by every swinging dick in Delaware County, I probably would buy a really good one. But this is for me. This is the classic case of if I could use this thing broken for its whole existence and never have a problem with it. You know, you let a friend borrow it and they snap the door handle off. That door handle that you've used 500 times, you let them borrow your car, and the next thing you know, the door handle's in their hand. And that'll be why my wife doesn't drive my Volkswagen anymore. Alright, I'm gonna just, because this is on by hand here, I'm just gonna take this off real quick. This thing's gonna be a problem. Now, like I said, this was just hand tight. It's easier to move the machine around without this attached. So let's take that off. I'm not gonna screw the back cover on just yet. I'm gonna spin it around here. Remember, I had mentioned earlier about me not keeping track of the screws, which was probably stupid anyway, but it looks to me like the housing screws or any of the outside sheet metal screws that hold this stuff in place are these hex heads. The ones that hold the cover in place are these round button heads. So it's not, and they're all the same length for the same purpose. So it's not like taking the headliner out of a 79 Chevelle, or I'm sorry, a 69 Chevelle, where every screw is a different length, or the taillights on a 65 Thunderbird. 27 screws to hold a taillight in, and not one of them's the same fucking length. Alright, so you can see how this is out, sticking out a little further. Which is desirable to the way it was. This fitting's really cool here because these just plug in. They're really nice that way. You can just jam that in there, shove it in pretty far, and that's the end of it. And then there's that ground plug, that ground wire that goes nowhere. That's amazing. All right, so that's there, that's there, that's there. And then go back to these screws here. Now, I didn't take any screws out of the inside of this thing, which is, you know, probably the best idea I had so far. So we know that all the screws that are left over are ones that go somewhere else. So that seems like that fits. That fits. Put that back into place there. Yeah, it looks to me, oh, come on, screws don't want to start because the hole's not lined up. Fucking Chinese, man. I wonder why Trump wants to tariff the fuck out of them. That's the least that we could do to... Oh, there we go. To get some of my time back for having to fuck with everything I buy from China. Sadly, I bought it. I knew what I was buying. And if I could have bought one that was made in the United States for 500 bucks, I would have spent the extra $2. You know, I paid $3 for this. I'd have spent the extra $200 for one made in the U.S. It's a sad state of affairs. I know I shouldn't discuss politics, but I can't help it, especially when it comes to shit like this. And this is a This is a clusterfuck. And it's unnecessary. I mean, in theory, you buy something, you take it out of the box, you should be able to plug it in, and it works. You know, I can kind of understand the not having an air water separator on it or some such thing, because, but even that, it should have come with one of these. This thing, that's like $2, and probably made in China. So it should have come with it. I'd have rather it come with that than come with this worthless fitting that doesn't fit shit, except Harbor Freight air hoses that suck. Well, that is kind of interesting. And who I said, there was no screws in the front here. Was there? Yeah, there's no screws in the front. Poor wife had to listen to me bitch about this already. I'm hoping it'll serve the purpose, and the purpose is to just cut, cut like this 5/16, or 3/16 or whatever it is, or an oil drum or some strapping. That's what it's for. I'm actually not going to cut with this right now. It's kind of more important to me to I got a screw left over. I wonder where it went. Probably play the videotape back and I'll find out where that extra screw went. Because they're all in there. They're all in there. Ah, that's where the extra screw goes. Yeah, I got an odd screw here. Interesting. So I have one and one, and I don't remember where they came from. They're the same threads and everything. So I must have put a hex head someplace that I wasn't supposed to, or I put a round head someplace I wasn't supposed to, or a button head. Oy, oy, oy. Oh, the GoPro died. I'm not too happy with that fucking thing either. Well, I'll plug that in for 6 hours so it'll run for 2. Alright, I'm not going to put this cover... You know what? Fuck it. Let's put the whole thing back together before I lose another screw. That is hilarious. So I'm reading the directions here, and it says, warning, if you need to replace the air filter, you can open this door. Turn off the power and unplug the power cord. Open the small side door of the machine and unplug the trachea. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny because it's Chinese. All right. So what I might end up doing here, which I probably won't, is put a right angle on here and then make some kind of fitting to hold that, and then put another right angle on here, or I'll just leave it this way and then screw it and unscrew it as necessary. This thing hanging off the back here is going to be problematic at all times. This sucks. This is really not cool. Now, I still have everything hand tight here. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. This has got paint on it. I don't want to. I'm working in such a crappy place because I got nowhere else to work right now. Infuriating. So I got 40 pounds of air going into the machine here. Let's see what's coming out. We're going to attach our ground clamp here. Oops, already attached. Let's see. 20 amps. All right, we got air coming through it. Let's see if we can cut some metal. Like butter. Let's see if we can cut some dirty painted metal. That's enough for me. I'm already tearing the tip up. Now, that was like 14 gauge. This is considerably heavier. This is actually what I bought this thing to cut, along with the 14 gauge. So this is like 5/16, 3/16. It's pretty thick shit. I like it. And so this is a touch arc. It's not high frequency, so when you gotta have. I should be wearing safety glasses, and I'm not. That's perfect. I am very happy with it. Wow, it's hot out here again today. So the Amico Power Plasma 50 or whatever it is, it cut right through this. Actually, that might even be 1/4 inch steel. It cut through the 14 gauge. It was a pretty decent cut. I'm twitchy. I don't have an edge guide or anything. A little bit of slag on the backside, but that's to be expected with a plasma cutter. It's a lot less slag than you get with a torch. And that's exactly what I wanted this thing for. I mean, and to be quite honest with you, these two cuts are probably the first and only cuts I'm going to be doing for a while with it. I don't have any projects right this second that need to be done. I am going to do a pig cooker eventually, so that's where this will come into play. So yeah, no, it's totally, perfectly, 100% acceptable for the time being. Thanks for watching. Sorry if I bored you. I hope you learned something.